Namah Shivaya.
Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
So we will continue with where we left off. And this will be the 28th verse of the 4th chapter. We will chant Dravya Yajna Stapo Yajna Yoga Yajna Statha Pare Swadhyaya Yajnana Yajnascha Yatayas Samshita Vrataha. Okay, so we are talking about the yajnas, tatha, so also, apare, there are others, dravya yajnaha, who use materials or who distribute wealth, and there are people who do tapo yajnaha, they do austerities, and yoga yajnaha, there are people who practice yoga, and they are of samshita vrataha. They are got firm vows, commitment they have, and yatayaha, they make firm efforts, swadhyaya yajnana yajnyaha, they produce knowledge or they pursue knowledge, swadhyaya yajna, they do the study of the scriptures as a yajna. So in this one verse, Krishna talks about 5 different yajnas, and to make it easier, let us try to break them up individually. So dravya yajna, that is one of the yajnas. Dravyam literally means materials, objects. So here dravya yajna means he is offering. In a yajna you offer something, and therefore here is offering dravyam. So dravyam here can mean money or materials or even knowledge. And therefore if you are offering money, dravya yajna is dhanam, charity. If you are offering knowledge, again it becomes dhanam. So basically, dravya yajna means you are offering something. It can be money, it can be your knowledge, it can be some objects which they require, basically charity. Even your time, you can offer as a dhanam, as a sharing. So if you have some time and you spend it with some sick person, or you spend it helping somebody else, this is all dravya yajna. Even kind words, you find somebody who needs comfort, so some kind words you say to him, that is also dhanam. You are sharing your time and your compassion with somebody who needs it. And this dhanam, so dravya yajna basically means dhanam, basically meaning charity, is considered an extremely important yajna in Shastra. Because in the Srishti, in the creation, remember, everything is a cycle. And we saw earlier in one chapter how the river receives water from the mountain, then it gives it back in the form of rivers to the ocean, and the river hands it back to the cloud, and the cloud gives it back to the mountain in the form of rain. So everything is cyclic. And cyclicity means I may receive, but the other part of the cycle is that I should give. Okay, and there is an interesting word, kripana. A kripana is a person who is only interested in getting. He is not interested in giving. And this is something which is not looked upon kindly by the scriptures. Because Krishna said in the last chapter, Evam pravartitam chakram na anuvartate yaha. That person who is not following the discipline of this cycle, who doesn't give in addition to receiving, is a kripanaha, is a miser, he says. And what happens in such a case is that one person only keeps on receiving and does not give at all, or a lot of people only keep on receiving and don't follow the discipline of giving, then the gap between the rich and the poor, it gets wider. The divide in society gets wider. And then you have crimes, robbery, chain snatching, all these things begin to happen. So that is, remember we're talking about giving voluntarily. Because if you give forcefully, then it becomes communism. And Shastra is not advocating giving forcefully, because in giving by force, there is no benefit for the giver. There may be benefit for the receiver, but there is no benefit for the giver. And the Shastra says that you receive without any doubt, you get, you earn, but you should not keep more than is necessary for you. And the other part is also there. Neither should you be forced to give. Then why should you give? Because of wisdom alone, I should come forward and share. And therefore, there are three basic sadhanas. Yajna, dana, tapaha. So yajna is prayer to the Lord. Dana is sharing whatever I have. And finally, tapaha is austerity, moderation in everything that I do. And therefore, Krishna here is emphasizing second one, danam, dravyam. So if danam is not accompanied by the necessary purity of mind, by the necessary correct attitude, remember that it can lead to the donor becoming very, very arrogant. So he will keep on saying, I have given, I have given, I have given. Right? So Dhanam was never envisaged by the Shastram as an activity in itself, as an isolated activity. It was never envisaged, and that is why in Shastram, Dhanam, charity, is included as part of a yajna. So that Dhanam is not a separate activity, but becomes an integral part of the ritual, the yajna itself. And therefore you have, during a yajna, you have Annadanam, you have Vastradhanam, you have Dakshina Dhanam. So you can have Annadanam, you can give grains, you can give food. Vastradhanam, you can give clothes. Dakshina Dhanam, you can give a Dakshina to the free priests. And actually, if you look at it, even Kanya Dhanam, marriage, giving away the daughter, is part of a yajna. And therefore, everything in the envisaged by the Shastram was a yajna. It was a yajna way of life. And therefore, Krishna says, Dravya yajna. Okay. Then, Tapo yajnaha. Tapas means what? Mastery of the sense organs. A willful self-denial, a voluntary self-denial, voluntary withdrawing or not doing something that I would like to do. Basically, what is the idea? To establish that I have mastery over my sense organs. And again, it should not be an enforced self-denial. It should be voluntary. That is a key. It should be willful and voluntary. Like your Ekadasi Upavas. Your willing abstinence, willing Upavasam, starvation you might call it. The abstinence from food. Even though food is there in the house, you don't eat it. Because it is a fast for you. Upavas is a fast for you. And this kind of willing and voluntary tapaha, it produces spiritual growth. And tapas therefore means saying no to whatever I regularly do, at least for some time. So, for example, Shivratri is a tapaha. What do you forego during Shivratri? you forgo your sleep for one night. So any willful self-denial to establish that I am in control of my sense organs. And slowly, if you do this regularly, if tapaha is done regularly, then you find that your sense organs actually fall under your control. So when I say no food today, the sense organs don't go on nagging me, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. When I say no coffee today, your whole day is not spent in thinking coffee, 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 coffee. The sense organs have listened. And the Shastra says that if you have the right attitude, even involuntary things like falling sick, illness can be converted into tapaha. So in the last 2 years, whoever got COVID, that COVID infection, it could have been viewed as austerity, tapaha. What is the condition? What is the condition for viewing, let us say, a COVID infection as austerity?
That you're not constantly thinking, oh, I'm sick, oh, in pain, but accept the situation with detection and endure it.
Yes. So you don't complain about it. At the same time, you do what is necessary. You take the medicines, you go to the doctor. If necessary, if it was necessary to get to an ICU, you get to the ICU. But you accept it as part of your life. And then it becomes tapaha. Because you are saying that this was given to me because certain amount of prarabdha karma had to be fulfilled. And therefore, there is nothing inauspicious about it. A huge part of my karma is going away. For me, it becomes austerity. In fact, there is a small little verse, Shubhashitam. So I'll break it up so that you can understand it easier. He says, Dhanvantam Adataram Nirdanam Chatapsvanam. Nirdanam Chatapsvanam. So Dhanvantam Adataram. The rich man should do tapas by way of data, by way of dhanam. He should become a data. He should become a giver. Dhanvan should become a giver. A rich man should do tapas by way of dhanam. And nirdhanam, the poor man, chatapsvinam, his tapas is what? Austerity. His tapas is fasting because he doesn't have money to give away. The rich man has money to give away, so his tapas is dhanam. The poor man doesn't have money to give away, so his tapas is fasting. The last line is more humorous than otherwise. It says, Ubhavambasi Mauktavyaha Gale Bhadva Mahashilam. He says, if any of these people don't do this, what they're supposed to do, that is, if the rich man doesn't do tapas by way of dhanam, and if the poor man doesn't do tapas by way of austerity, fasting, what should you do? He says, Gale Badhva, tie a big stone around their necks, and Mahashilam Maktavaha, dump them into the ocean. So it's just a joke, okay? So it's last line is a joke, but it's a Shubhashitam, Sanskrit saying. Okay, what is the next one? Yoga Yajna. So, what is Yoga Yajna? It could be anything. So, we look at what Shankara says. Shankara says, practice in the form of pranayama, pratyahara, ashtanga yoga basically, the 8 angas prescribed by Patanjali Rishi, that is called Yoga Yajna. Right? So there are 4 layers in our personality, 5 actually, but the Annamaya Kosha, the Anandamaya Kosha is not accessible. So we look at the 4 others, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. So to discipline Annamaya Kosha, I have got what? Asana, Yogasana. To discipline Pranamaya Kosha, I have got Pranayama. To discipline Manomaya Kosha, what have I got?
Meditation.
Dhyanam, meditation. And to discipline Vijnanamaya Kosha, what have I got?
Knowledge. Studying scripture.
Shastric study, Adhyaya. Okay. So for Annamaya Yogasana, Pranamaya Pranayama, Manomaya Dhyanam, Vijnanamaya Adhyaya. So Shankara's view is that this Ashtanga Yoga is a good scheme devised by Patanjali, and if I follow it, it will integrate the various koshas, the various layers of my personality, and if the various koshas work in harmony, for me, it becomes yoga. Because life becomes, to put it in SPG's words, if the koshas work in harmony, life becomes a symphony. If the koshas don't work in harmony, life becomes a cacophony. That's SPG's immortal words. So much like an orchestra, right? If all the instruments in the orchestra work under the direction of the conductor and work harmoniously, what do you get? You get beautiful music. If they work independently, what do you get? You get only noise, which is harmful to the ears. And therefore, Yoga Yajna, Ashtanga Yoga, integrates your personality. Now, there is an author called Madhusudana Saraswati. Have you heard the name?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the name of the text?
Gudartha Deepika.
Gudartha Deepika. Why is that text known to us?
Gita Dhyanam.
Gita Dhyanam comes from that text. It is not part of the Gita as such, but it comes from Madhusudana Acharya's text. So he writes this very beautiful commentary called Gudartha Deepika. We don't refer to it much for one very simple reason, because in many places he differs very respectfully from Shankaracharya. So we don't much refer to the text, but there are portions which we can refer to. And here is one where in this, here Madhusudana Saraswati adds a note saying that yes, Krishna is, by saying yoga as a as one of the disciplines, one of the yajnas, Krishna is definitely referring to Ashtanga. But he says you should be very careful about the verses. He says verse number 26 refers to Pratyahara. Verse number 27 refers to Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And verse number 28 refers to Pranayama. So, because of that, he says, in this verse, when Krishna says Yoga Yajna, what should it be? You see the logic. He is saying there are 8 angas of Ashtanga. Verse number 26 is referring to Pratyahara. Verse number 27 is referring to Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Verse number 28 is referring to Pranayama. So in these 3 verses, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi have been referred to. So now when Krishna says Yoga Yajna, he is referring to what is left out, which is what? Yam, Niyam, Asana. This is a commentary, a side note by Madhusudana Saraswati, which you can note for your own understanding. If you want to follow that interpretation, this is the interpretation. Okay. Then what else is there? The 4th one is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya Yajna. And Shankara defines Swadhyaya Yajna in a very simple matter. He says Rik Adi Abhyasaha. Rik means Rig Veda, etc. means the other 3 Vedas. Abhyasaha here means chanting. So Swadhyaya means Rig Adi Abhyasaha according to Vedic rules. Right. Now, according to Vedic rules is very important. What does it mean? It means you do the Upanayanam ceremony. What is Upanayanam ceremony?
The thread ceremony.
Entering Brahmacharya.
Upanayana ceremony is the
Yajñopavi.
sacred thread wearing, which makes you eligible to go to a Gurukul, okay, or go to a Gurukula. And therefore, Yatha Vidhi, according to Vedic rule here, means that if you are learning Rig Veda chanting or any Veda chanting or even Bhagavad Gita chanting, you do your Upanayanam ceremony, you make yourself eligible for learning the Veda scriptures, and then you go and learn from an Acharya. You don't go and learn from YouTube. As simple as that. The traditional way. Of course, nowadays, very few people wear all the sacred thread and all that. And even those who do, they don't chant. And those who wear also, they don't chant. So anyway, we will leave all that part. So here, learning to chant a Parayanam, that is being known as Adhyaya. Okay. Remember that regular chanting is also Parayanam. And Parayanam consists of three things. First, learning to chant. That is why, when we started these classes, I keep saying in all the classes that please attend chanting classes. Because if you don't attend chanting classes, your lips will not be able to form the letters, aksharaha, properly. And therefore, what is known in Sanskrit as aksharaha shuddhi will not be there. Okay, June has asked a question, what is Parayana? June, do you attend, chanting classes? That is Parayana. Any chanting of the scripture is called Parayana. The reason for attending chanting classes is that the teacher tells you how to chant. The teacher chants for you and then you chant. Traditionally, in the traditional class, what is done is that the teacher chants once and you chant twice. And then if you make a mistake, the teacher corrects you. Okay, so we try to follow that, not you chanting twice. I think some of the teachers follow that. One or two of the teachers following the chanting twice portion, but normally because of the length of the passages, we go ahead with simple chanting. And if you don't chant, your lips will not be able to form the words properly. Forming the words properly is called akshara shuddhi, purity of the alphabet. That may not be there. That's number one. Number two, and this is most important, which we don't follow. Before doing any chanting, what should be done traditionally? You have to memorize the text. So if you see any, even YouTube, there are some traditional schools. You can see the chanting of the Veda or chanting of the Gita. You will find that the students don't have a text in front of them. Have you noticed? You can go and look at the YouTube, videos of traditional chanting. You will find that students don't have a text. So, of course, I'm not saying that we should do that, okay? Because learning 701 verses is no joke. And retaining them in memory is even worse. But this is the traditional method. You first commit to memory, then you learn to chant. So the idea of committing to memory is that when, let us say, you are studying this fourth chapter, if you know all the verses, if you have committed them all to memory, they are there in your mind, right? And so you get a total picture. Whenever you study, the entire picture is available to you because you know what verses were there before and you know what verses are there after. But today you don't know because even if you're attending chanting classes, unless you've been attending long enough, it's not there in memory. So that's part of the discipline. And that is why traditionally, you'll find that scriptural literature has two types. One are called sutras. Sutra means it's aphorism, very compressed capsule statement. And one is called shloka, the verse. So, for example, in Brahma Sutra, I know you have not done it. You have the first sutra which says Atatho Brahma Jignasa, which means now we will start the study of Brahma Gyan, Brahman, Atma Jnanam. That's a capsule statement, because when you actually analyze, you will find that each of these words is analyzed in great detail. So the whole study of that first sutra, Athato Brahma Jigna, 3 words, they might take you up to 20 lectures or 30 lectures. But what is the idea? If you have this in memory, whenever you recall that 3 words, you will recall the entire discussions, at least the essence of it. And similarly, if you know all the verses of chapter 4, whichever verse you are talking about today, you will be able to correlate it to the previous verses and the forthcoming verses. So that is the sutra form. And of course, there is the sutra form's basic advantage is what? They are all very, very short and therefore easy to memorize. Now the Brahma Sutra, for example, has got something like 550 odd sutras, right? If you write them down, a few pages at the most. But if you are going to study the Brahma Sutras, sutra by sutra, it will take you a minimum of 3 to 4 years. So that's the degree of expansion which comes. But you have to memorize, so it's easy to memorize. And the other one is sloka form. For example, Gita is a sloka form. Now, what is the advantage of sloka form? Even though it's longer, you can actually rhythmically chant them or even sing them. And therefore, it is easier to memorize. So the entire scriptural literature is quite systematically being developed. They all make it easy for you to memorize. And therefore, both sutras and slokas are devised with the objective of making it easy for us to commit the whole text to memory. And this is what is called Swadhyaya Yajna. Remember, in the old days, there were no books. Everything was memory only. So how you learnt was, you went to the Acharya and he taught you and you memorized it. And since you memorized it, and knowing that how our memories are, we have to keep on chanting regularly if you want to be able to retain. That right? Even chanting with the textbook in front, we have difficulty. We don't know what is the next one. But those days, the earlier days, everything was in memory. Of course, today you've got books. But even if you have a book and I open out the book and say, then somebody will say, which page is this, which sloka number, all that will come. All those things were not there in those days. And the beautiful part of this is, which many of you would have experienced also personally, is that when you do regular chanting, regular Parayanam, you may have started off by doing the Parayanam. So many people, for example, have joined chanting classes only. We have 4 or 5 chanting classes per week, right? There are many of us students there who have joined only the chanting classes. But the beauty is that some of them, sooner or later, develop the desire to understand what they chant. So from Parayanam, you will come to Adhyaya, saying that I want now to learn. And therefore, this Swadhyaya Yajna is considered a very, very important sadhana. So from Swadhyaya Yajna, many people will develop the desire to come to Jnānayoga, which is a study of the meaning of the scriptures. So Swadhyaya is called in Sanskrit Shabda Grahanam. Grahanam is to grasp, hold. Shabda Grahanam means holding the words, committing them to memory. While Jnānayoga is called Artha Grahanam, holding the meaning. Grahanam is holding or grasping. Shabda is words. Artha is meaning. Therefore, Swadhyaya is Shabda Grahanam. Jnana is Artha Grahanam. And the sequence is that first you should learn the words, then you should know the meaning. Okay. Now, if you look at 25th verse, Krishna has said what? Brahmagnavapare yajñam yajñe naivo upajohati. Jnana yajña is already mentioned. Now, if you look at the 28th verse, which we are doing, Krishna again says Jnana yajña. What should be the doubt? Why does Krishna repeat Jnana yajña? He has already mentioned in 25th verse. Why is he talking again about it in 28th verse? So Shankara says, 25th verse, when he says Jnana yajña, he is talking about Atma Jnana. That is Paravidya, Parajnanam. And 28th verse, when he says Jnana yajña, he is talking about Aparajnanam, all the worldly knowledge, which can include Karma Kanda Jnanam, it can include logic, it can include physics, chemistry, maths, anything. But 28th verse talks about non-Atma Jnanam. 25th verse talks about Atma Jnanam. And if you restrict the whole thing to scriptures, then we can say 25th verse talks about Brahma Vidya, which is called Paravidya, Supreme Vidya. And 28th verse talks about the rest of the scriptures, Karma Kanda, Tarka, Mimamsa, Vyakaranam, all these things. So Tarka is logic, Mimamsa is analysis of the scriptures, certain rules are there, Vyakaranam is grammar. All the secondary disciplines, they come under 28th verse. All the other disciplines, all the other means only one. Atma Jnanam comes under 25th verse. And also note that Dravya Yajñaha, the word here, Dravya Yajñaha, it does not refer to the Yajña. It refers to the one who is practicing the Yajña. So in grammar it is called Bahuvrihi Samasa, the person who is practicing the Yajña. All these people are what? Yatayaha. Yataha means committed. And literally speaking, in Sanskrit dictionary, if you see, Yati means sannyasi. But in this context, you can take Yati as anybody who is seriously committed to the spiritual path. So Yati, he is a committed spiritual seeker. The one for the person for whom moksha is top priority. He may be a sannyasi, he may be a grihastha. What is required is to qualify as Yati, he should be a full-time or majority of his time should be spent in spiritual jnana sadhana. And therefore he says, Samshita Vrataha. Samshita Vrataha. People of firm resolve. That means that once I have taken a vow, I will practice it always. A person who observes all vritams, all the vows very strictly, because spiritual progress, especially in Vedanta, is doubtful unless you have got a strong willpower. Because a person of a weak willpower, for him it is difficult to advance in spirituality. So that's why Samshita Bharataha. Okay, any questions?
So, Om Acharya,
Yes.
so you said verse 26 is Pratyahara, 27 Dharana Dhyana Samadhi.
That is the interpretation taken in Udartha Deepika. You can keep it with you, you can drop it also if you want.
Okay. So you mentioned Yoga Yagna. What Krishna is mentioned here is as the Yama Niyama, like Triasana.
Yama Niyama Asana. First three.
First three. Okay. Right.
Because
And,
other three have been others 5 have been covered separately. That is what Madhusudana Saraswati says.
okay. Right.
So, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that with the Vedic traditional way of getting into the Jnana or study of scripture is after Janayu ceremony. But for women, traditionally, the Janayu ceremony was not done so.
So traditionally, I mean, again, I'm not giving you my views. Okay, this is the view of Shastra. Traditionally, the Upanayanam ceremony qualified the male to become a Vedantic student, and the marriage ceremony, the Vivaha ceremony, qualified the female to become a Vedic student. Remember that without the wife, no Vedic ritual is possible for a Grahastha. The wife is the one who says, yes, you can start. So, in fact, the position of the woman is much stronger in Vedic Shastra, since unless she gives the go ahead, no Vedic ritual will ever take place.
But with Janayu ceremony, the Janayu ceremony first, then the Vivaha.
Janayu ceremony is for the male.
The man has already become eligible.
Yes, he has become eligible
So, but by
to study. He has become eligible for Vedic study, but not for doing ritual,
practice.
not to do any ritual. Ritual comes in fact, 85% of the rituals are for Grahasthas only. See, the Shastra does not envisage a man who does not get married. So, in Shastra's view, you either get married or you become a sannyasi. If you become a sannyasi, in any case, you are free of all karma. You don't have to do any karma at all. You can study all the Vedas. But if you are not a sannyasi, then instead of loitering around the world, you please get married and do your actions so as to produce Chitta Shuddhi. So you have to understand the context. Shastra does not envisage Bhishma Mahapatra, a person like Bhishma who said, I will not get married.
Om Acharya.
Yeah.
So the Swadhyaya here interpreted as the chanting.
Parayana. Parayana. Yes.
Parayana. So is it the same context in the Yoga Sutras, Parayanam of the Sutras?
You can chant the Yoga Sutras also. There is no harm. But remember that though as Vedantics, we accept the practice part of Yoga Sutras, we reject the philosophy of the Yoga Sutras. Because Yoga Sutra is a very clearly dualistic philosophy. Why is it dualistic? Because there is Prakriti and there is what? Purusha. And if Prakriti and Purusha are different, how can the Purusha ever get disentangled from Prakriti? Because Advaita says that you are free only when you recognize there is nobody other than yourself. This is a very important, way of understanding this. If I am saying I am Brahman, am I finite? Am I infinite?
Infinite.
And if I am saying I am Purusha Brahman, but I recognize Prakriti as separate from me, am I finite? Am I infinite?
Finite.
That's the contradiction. Remember, the infinite can be only one. The moment you accept anything else, you become finite.
Okay. Because that's been interpreted as completely different, I think, in the Yoga Sutras, like the self-study about knowing the self. So is it the knowing about Purusha there, or is it about the Parayanam?
I think basically Nandakumar would be a better Sundar,
Om
could you
sir.
comment on that, please? Yes.
Yes, sir. It is realizing that you are the Purusha and not the Prakriti, and uncoupling that Purusha from Prakriti is called Kaivalyam, the realization that you are that pure consciousness, that Purusha, and you are not this Prakriti, which is made up of this body, mind, sense complex. That realization is
That is
Kaivalyam.
called Kaivalyam. But the problem with that
Why
realization is what?
dualistic? Why dualistic? That because it is said that Prakriti and Purusha are eternal, and both are considered to be Nityam and Satyam. That is where Dvaitam and Advaitam differs. Is it clear?
Yes, Nandagopalji, thank you.
Okay. The only problem with that
Sir.
interpretation is that when I am separating Prakriti from myself, I am always finite. Because a separation means there is a boundary. A boundary means finitude. This is the Advaitic view, so please don't get confused. You are most welcome to follow your Dvaitic Yoga Shastra also, but there is a way of interpreting Yoga Shastra in a Advaitic manner, which I think to a large extent Sundar does in his classes.
Yes, Acharya, I listened to his lectures. Yeah, mostly I think our Vedantic way of interpretation.
Yeah, so if you look at some other writings of Yoga Shastra, you're going to get confused. Yes,
Sir,
Alkaji.
may I ask a question?
Alkaji's got a hand up, so.
Yes, Acharya-ji, my dilemma is if we study both together, Advaita and Dvaita philosophy, then how do we come to a conclusion about which one?
If you study both together, you got one leg on one ship, another leg on another ship, and when they go in different directions, what happens to you?
Correct. So
Everybody
we
knows.
do Patanjali Yoga Sutra with Nandagopalji, and that is the Dvaita philosophy, right?
But Nanda Gopalji does it as far as possible with a Advaitic interpretation.
Yes, sir. In fact, last sutra we did 6 Bhagavad Gita slokas to explain that sutra.
Yeah.
If,
Okay. All right.
So
we
Nan-
relate it to Dvaitam.
yeah. So that is the thing, if you are attending Sundar's classes and you are reading, let us say any other Yoga Sutras text or attending other classes, you will find there is a conflict.
No, not any other, just this class as well as your class where we are.
Yeah, so there should be no conflict because Sundar does ultimately have the background of Vedanta into the class.
Right. Okay.
Remember that his interpretation will not be the most famous interpretation because he is doing it Advaitically, while
Right.
most commentators take the Dvaitic interpretation of Yoga Sutras.
Right.
Most commentators, including Vedantic commentators, because they have not appreciated this difference, that infinity can be only one. As long as you don't appreciate that difference, for you there is no contradiction.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
And Vinita ji.
Yes, Raviji, I had a different kind of question. Gargi and Maitri and all were supposed to be they were Vedantic scholars. They studied the Vedas. So without the Upanayanam, was there a tradition for women to even study in those days?
Gargi was married. Right? Was she not?
Yeah. So, but that means, she could participate in the rituals, but even the study was permitted.
How can you do the ritual? See, the whole thing, as I understand, is that once the man is what they call comes out of his grahastha ashram, out of his ashram, the guru,
Right.
his gurukula, brahmacharya ashram is come out. He is qualified Vedantic teacher, right? And therefore, when the girl gets married, he teaches her.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sundar, you wanted to say something?
No, sir. I just wanted to add that Shankara saw that. I don't know which Shankara, but he saw that Advaitam in that Yoga Sutra philosophy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Interpretation is more of Vedantic.
Yeah. Vedanta is, I mean, the Yoga Sutras. See, there is a school of thought which says that Patanjali, Patanjali himself, it says, this thinking says that Patanjali was Advaitin. But the interpretations of Patanjali, the most famous one, which is the Calcutta University one, what is that? The big fat book.
Hariharananda Swami. Swami
But,
Hariharananda.
yeah, but that is the Swami Harihara is the interpretation of a Bhashyam which is Vyasacharya's. Isn't it?
Yes,
This Vyasacharya who wrote the Bhashyam on Yoga Sutras, he is not our good old Vyasacharya, not the Mahabharata Vyasacharya. He is a different Vyasacharya. And therefore he had a Dvaitic interpretation, and because that Vyasacharya had a Dvaitic interpretation, Hariharananda also took that Dvaitic interpretation. And that is that Vyasacharya's Bhashyam. Again, I'll repeat, he is not our Vyasacharya, right? He is another Vyasacharya. That Bhashyam is dualistic, and because of that, because most of the commentators base their works on that Vyasacharya, you will find that the majority of Yoga Sutra works are dualistic.
Yes, sir.
But there is nothing to believe that originally Patanjali was, Dvaitic. Of course, this is the Vedantin's point of view. We will always say that. In fact, there are people who are so strongly, like for example, there's a school in Bombay, very big one, near Santa Cruz. The yoga something. What is it called?
Yoga Institute.
Yoga Institute. That's right. And they follow Yoga Sutras as their main book. Right? And they are so strong in following it. It's a Dvaitic interpretation they follow. They follow this Vyasacharya's Bhashyam only, but the interpretation is purely Dvaitic. And it is so strong that if you talk about Advaita, they criticize you very strongly. There was when in the earlier stages, when Shivananda Ashram was applying for its membership, basically, of that recognition from Ayush, there was one of the teachers from Yoga Institute who came as what they call the observer or the inspector or whatever they call it, to evaluate the application. As luck would have it, I was there at that point of time. I was in Trivandrum, and I was there in the ashram at that point of time. And she asked me, "What do you teach?" So I said, I teach Bhagavad Geeta. So she said, "I hope you don't teach something silly like Vedanta and all." So that strong feeling is there that Vedanta is useless. That is there as far as Advaitam, no? So that is going to be there. You can't, in many cases, reconcile. So you have to choose which I want.
Sir, Hansa Madam came there?
No, not Hansa Madam was not the one. There was another lady, I forget her name.
Because once I had a discussion with her, she's strongly opposed to this.
Yeah. Their philosophy itself is strongly Dvaitic. For them, Vedantins are useless. In fact, there is a section of the believers in Karma Kanda, which is called, the believers in Karma Kanda are called Purva Mimamsikas. If you remember Upadesha Saram, we started the Saram with talking about Purva Mimamsikas. So there is a section of them which are called the Prabhakara. I think Prabhakara Matam they're called. They follow a rishi called Prabhakara, a teacher called Prabhakara. They say that the very idea that Vedanta teaches Atma Jnanam, it's a silly idea. They say that Vedanta never teaches Atma Jnanam. It is all interpretations by Vedantins. For them, they say there is only one teaching of the Veda. You must do karma. And karma will give you moksha. And even in Bhagavad Gita, they will quote, Can you imagine which verse they'll quote? Chapter 3 they'll quote. Nitya karma kuru tvam. Do what is to be done. So they say even Krishna said, do karma. So that's a Prabhakara Matam. So I'm just showing you that it is possible for the same text to be interpreted Dvaitically, Advaitically, Vishishta Advaitically. All three interpretations are possible from the same text. And if you read the books, you will find how balanced and how logical each of these interpretations are. They are not that it is silly interpretation. It is backed by logic. And to find the hole in that logic, it is beyond us. You have to read Shankara for that. Only Shankara finds the hole in the logic. Yes, Khush.
Hariom, sir.
Hariom.
Sir, Vedanta being a part of being the end of Vedas, which was Apurushaya, and Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which very well came from Sage Patanjali. I mean, how could they say it as silly? It's just because one of the discussions we had with in Swami Vivekananda University was the same discussion. We had half students which were from Patanjali and half was Vedantins. So they actually said that the whole, even there they teach the Advaita Vedanta view, saying that you cannot challenge ever Vedanta because truth cannot be challenged.
Well, actually, if you look at it, let us, for example, look at the Dvaitins. For them also, Veda is Pramanam. For you, Veda is Pramanam. For the Vishishta Advaitins also, Veda is Pramanam. What are the differences? As Vedantin, you say, Vedas say that there is only one Brahman. Right?
Yes.
As Dvaitins, you are a Dvaitin. You say that Veda says there is one Brahman and there is one Jiva and never shall the two meet. As Vishishta Advaitins, you use the same Veda and you say, I am in between somewhere. I say that yes, all Jivas are Brahman, but they are parts of Brahman. They are not entire Brahman. Is the difference? Dvaitins say Jiva and Paramatma are different and they can never meet. And that is why you have to travel to go and meet Paramatma. You have to go to Kailasha, you have to go to Vaikuntha, all those things. And once you go there and then you settle in the feet of Paramatma and spend the rest of your eternal life over there and you are happy. That is the Dvaitin view. The Vishishta Advaitin says, no. Jivatma is Paramatma, but not entire Paramatma. Other way around is not true. Jivatma, Paramatma is true, but Paramatma is Jivatma is not true. Because Paramatma is sum total of all Jivatmas. And therefore, to say that I am Paramatma is fine. But to say Paramatma is me, that is not fine. Advaita says, look, all this is rubbish. There is only one Paramatma and that is I. So,
thank you, sir.
The same Veda, the same Upanishad, three different interpretations and very intelligent Acharyas writing commentaries which are extremely logical. Which is the main reason we have so much of literature in our country, so much of Vedic literature is there, basically because free thought was encouraged. Unlike today, where everybody shouts at each other if you have a different viewpoint, there your opponent was respected. In fact, there is a traditional way of teaching. First, to take the opponent's view. Then you examine it. You accept the view first. Okay, let us say that what you are saying is correct. Then you examine it, you refute it, then only can you give your own view. So there's a Purvapakshi view, there is a refutation, and then there is Siddhanta, your view. That is a traditional way a text is presented. Which is why you will find Shankara Bhashyam, Shankara comes up, he takes the Purvapakshi view first, he demolishes that, and then he gives his view. Yes, Alkaji?
So when I heard somebody say that ultimate aim of life is to merge with the divine. So does that mean that's an Vishishta Advaita view?
That is the Vishishtadvaita. And remember, he will quote. He will quote from Veda because Veda uses these kind of words. The difference lies in the interpretation. He will say merge means you will merge, you will become part of. And we will say merge means understand that there was never any difference.
Right. Okay.
That is why the study is based on words, and words are so very important. Grammar is so very important.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, Satchit Yogashala.
Sorry, Acharya, I'm saying that. I'm Indira. Yeah. So, Acharya, I was going through the last lecture about the Shrotra Dinendriya and Shabda Dinendriya. Just wanted to clarify that. So, first is the offerings of the sense organs, which is like control over the senses.
Yes.
The second one is your mastery over the senses. That's the only difference, right?
Yes, one is offering the sense organs itself, which means that you are not exposing yourself to any sense impulses. That is sannyasi.
Okay.
One is you have the sense organs with you, but you have mastery over the sense objects, which means you are a grahastha, but you have mastery.
Okay. So first one is kind of a initial stage of.
First one is there are two different lifestyles. One is sannyasi's lifestyle, one is the grahastha lifestyle. The sannyasi doesn't get exposed to any temptation at all because he stays away. You do get exposed to temptation, but you manage it.
Right. Okay. So Shabdadi is the sannyasi's way.
Shotra Deen
Shrotradi is
Indriyani.
the
Shotra is
sannyasi.
sannyasi. Shotra means the sense organ itself. Shotra
Right.
Adi. Shabda Adi means the Vishaya, the object of the sense organs.
Okay. Yes. Clear, Acharya. And you were saying about the Dana Yajna. So, sorry, Dravya Yajna. You said about something at the end about it's not about the Yajna, it's about the person who is doing it.
That is the grammar part of it. If you look at the word, it will talk about Dravya Yajna. There will be a visara. If you break up the Sandhi, you will find there is a look at the word Dravya Yajnas Tapo Yajna. First word. Right?
Okay.
The half sa, I mean, I'm not putting all this in because most of us don't know the grammar, including me for that matter. Okay. So the half sa represents, when you break the sandhi, it represents the visarga, 2 dots.
Yes.
And therefore it will become Dravya Yajnaha. In Sanskrit grammar, when the visarga is there, it is the first case, the subject case, which means it is Prathama Vibhakti. So Dravya Yajnaha becomes the person performing the Dravya Yajna.
Okay. Right. Understood, Acharya. Thank you.
It's not very relevant for understanding, but I mean, it's when you're doing the bhashyam, if you are a grammar specialist, you can always point this out and say, no, what you're saying is rubbish, it's not all that you can do. So that is just a by the way thing, but it doesn't take away from our understanding at all.
Okay. So here, all these yagnas, they're talking about the person who is doing these.
Yeah,
activities.
and therefore also performing about, since you're talking about the person, you're obviously referring to the yajna which is being performed. It's only grammatical point.
Right. Thank you, Acharya.
Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.